All right, so today we're going to be talking about continuous domain and range. And first off, what makes it continuous, if you remember yesterday, discrete was, on a graph anyways, was a bunch of dots, and they were not connected with a line. Okay, so continuous would simply mean that it's connected with a line. It doesn't necessarily mean that it goes on forever, but that from this point to this point, it's continuous because it's connected with a line. Okay, so continuous domain and range is a little bit different than discrete. So with discrete, if you remember, we just listed everything out. Okay, so domain is x's, and you would just find all your x's and list them all out. Range was y's, so we'd find the y's and list them all out. So with this, it's going to be done a little bit different way. Okay, and you can still see that we're still asking if it's a function or not. Okay, now first off, let's just go ahead and take care of the function. So if a vertical line was to pass through this right here, would this be a function? So yes, that vertical line would never have touched anything twice. And so this would be a function. Okay. Okay, so now when it comes to doing the domain and range, I want you to think of this not as a graph, but as a picture. So when you are taking a picture with your phone and you take a picture and you're like, oh, I like this picture, but it's got all this stuff around it that I don't need. What do you do to that picture? You crop it, right? And so you take all that excess stuff and get rid of it. Well, right now, this graph is like a picture, but look at all this excess graph that I don't need all around it. And so we are going to crop this excess graph out, okay? So we're going to crop the picture. So that means we're going to crop it on the sides, we're going to crop it on the top, and crop it on the bottom. And we don't want to lose any part of our picture itself. Okay, so if you crop it right here and chop off the bottom part, then we've done it wrong. Okay, so watch this. So we're going to crop the top right there. So we went to the very top, to the very side, from the bottom, and in. And now we can get rid of all that stuff right there. Okay, and so this right here, now we may not actually get rid of all this stuff, but now we're going to write down where we've cropped it. Okay, and so that's going to be our domain and range, is the writing down of where we cropped it. So domain is what we're going to do first, and it goes from the left, which would be, it looks like at -6 right there, and I know it's kind of hard to see, all the way to the right, which is +2. Okay. So you can see right there that green line from the left at -6 to +2. Okay. Now, the circle was a closed circle. It was filled in. So here in a second, when we show you how to write it, it's going to have an equal to bar. And the same with that one. And I'll talk more about that here in just a second. Okay, so here's how you will write this. So every single time that you do a continuous domain and range, then you will, where'd my mouse go? You will always put X, if it's domain, in the middle, and then put 2 less than symbols. Okay, so 2 less than symbols, always less than symbols. So they're always going to be pointing to the left. Okay. Then the number that's on the left will go right here, which is -6. And the number that's on the right, okay, right here 2, will go on the right. If -6, this line right here, is touching a closed circle, well, let's do it this way. You always put an equal to bar unless you see an open circle. Okay, so always put an equal to bar unless you see an open circle. So we don't have an open circle here, you put an equal to bar. Don't have an open circle here, so you put an equal to bar. And then this would be your answer right here. So the domain, which is us cropping it, So we're cropping it from -6 to 2. So we cropped it from -6 to 2. Now, the range is going to be just the opposite. It's going on the y's, which is up and down. Okay. So let's see. Let me get this going. There we go. So the range is the y values. Okay. So we go from the bottom, which was, it looks like -6 down here, to +3 right here, because it's in between 2 and 4. So that would be +3. So I'm going to put a y in the middle with 2 less than symbols. So a y in the middle, because it's range, with 2 less than symbols, always 2 less than symbols. And then -6 was on the bottom, so -6. Okay, -6 was on the bottom, which makes it the smallest number, and it always starts with the smallest number. Okay. And then the top is the biggest number, so it goes to the right. So the domain kind of followed, it was on the left, so it went here, it was on the right, so it went there. But with range, the bottom number is the smaller number, and then the top number is the bigger number, so it goes on the right. And then, do we see any open circles? No, this is touching the line, and so a line is not an open circle. And then this is touching a closed circle. So if there's no open circles, you always put equal to bars, and that's your range. All right. I know this part right here, the less than symbols, will take some time getting used to, but we'll get there. Right now, I just want to make sure we're understanding the cropping part. Okay, so here's another one. So we've got a picture. Notice that this is an open circle right here. Okay, so that's going to matter at some point. All right. So is it a function? So would a vertical line touch it twice? Man, that goes too fast. No, I don't see anywhere that a vertical line would touch this twice. So yes, this is a function. All right, so we're going to crop this picture. So on the left, we're going to crop, and you go right to the dot. We don't want to leave a space, any spaces out here. So we went right to the dot and cropped it right on top of that dot. And then we're going to go all the way to the right here on top of that dot. Okay, we're not cutting anything out, but we're not going to leave any space either. Okay, and then remember, this was an open circle, so that will matter. So we're going to put X in the middle with 2 less than symbols on either side. Okay, so we put X in the middle with 2 less than symbols on either side. So on this side, we hit -3 on the x-axis right here. Okay, so we put -3 right there. Over here, we hit +3. So we're going to put +3 right there. Now, this did not have an open circle. This -3 was not on an open circle, so we put an equal to bar. But the +3 was touching an open circle. So we do not put an equal to bar. And this is my domain right here. Okay, so now we got to crop the top. So we're cropping the y. So we're going across the y-axis now. And so notice when I'm cropping the x's, I'm crossing the x-axis. When I'm doing domain, I'm crossing the x-axis. And then when I'm doing range, I'm crossing the y-axis. Okay, so I'm going to cross the y-axis here. So whenever you draw these lines, and if I were you, of course, if you're doing it on a computer, you really can't draw the lines. But if you're on paper, I would be drawing these lines. All right, so we're going to have a y in the middle with 2 less than symbols on either side. And then we hit -2 down here. Okay, so -2 goes right there. It was no open circles. And so kids will say, but it's just a line. Well, that's fine. I just want to know, is it an open circle? If it's not an open circle, then you're going to put an equal to bar every single time. Okay. And then up here, we did hit an open circle on 9. So on 9, we did have an open circle. So this is the only time we don't put an equal to bar. Okay. I don't really like this one, but we'll do it real quick. So first off, we have a rule. Well, let's do function first. Is it a function? So vertical line, ever touch that twice? Nope, definitely not. So this is a function. And then we're going to crop this. The problem is we have a rule that says you can't crop arrows. So there's arrows on the end of these. And what do arrows mean? It means it keeps on going. So imagine this picture that just goes on forever. I can't crop that. And so whenever we go to crop the right-hand side, I can't crop it. When we go to crop the left-hand side, we can't crop it because there's arrows. So you cannot crop arrows. Okay, so what do we do if you can't crop either side? Okay, we call this all real numbers. All real numbers. It means goes on forever. There is no cutting it off at any point. Can't crop it. However, on the Y's, you kind of can crop this because this is a flat line. You can cut like everything out on both the top and the bottom except exactly where it's at. And so I don't like this one because it's kind of confusing. But the only Y value is just the only place where it's at because there's nothing going up and nothing going down. It's just a flat line, which would be -2. So this is why I don't like this. That was kind of confusing. That Y equals -2. So hopefully we won't see anything like that. Okay, this is something that we will see. First off, is it a function? Yes, it is. So it wouldn't touch it twice. And so we're going to crop this. All right, so when we come over here to the right-hand side, can I crop this? I'm not sure if you can tell, but that's an arrow right there. It's not a dot. It's an arrow. Over here, can we crop this side? That's an arrow. You can't crop arrows. So I can't crop the right-hand side, and I can't crop the left-hand side. So you can't crop arrows. So if you can't crop either side, then our domain is all real numbers. Okay. All right, well, what about the top? So can you crop the top? Well, when I go to crop the top, no, I hit an arrow again. What about the bottom? Nope, I hit an arrow again. So I know this seems kind of weird, but if that's going to go on forever, then so this means that your domain and range just go on forever. It doesn't cut off. We can't crop anything. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at this one. So is it a function? So we send our line through. All right, didn't see anywhere where it would have touched twice, so this is a function. All right, so domain. We try to crop the right-hand side, and I hit an arrow. Try to crop the left-hand side. I hit an arrow. Can't crop either of these. I will tell you, domain tends to have all real numbers more than range, okay? And so right here, you've seen it, like this is like our third time in a row that domain has been all real numbers. And so you do tend to see it on domain more than you do range, okay? Okay, so when we go to crop the Y, you can crop the top. There's no arrows up here, but you cannot crop the bottom because there are arrows down there. So how do we do that? So you know how we put Y and then we put less than symbols on both sides? Well, if I'm only cropping the top, then you would only put the symbol on the right-hand side where the bigger number goes. If you're only cropping the bottom, then it would go on the left-hand side. So I'm only going to put a less than symbol on this side, and then the top number was at -2. I wasn't touching an open circle, so we do put an equal to bar. Okay. All right, so I know that this is going to take a little bit of time to get used to, but we're going to do a lot of practice. And if you're struggling with it, I highly recommend that you come do the live Zooms with us where we do this together. Do not just sit there and fail this and go, man, I don't know this. This is going to be very big on our next test.